The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm Steven Sakash here again with my co-host, Tulio Siragusa, and we've got a special guest returning to the show, last on here 2 years to the date, and we'll introduce her in a moment. So growth is one of the most celebrated words in business. We talk about growing revenue, growing teams, growing reach, impact, but growth can also test the very things that made a business special in the first place. As companies scale, culture can become diluted, leaders can become stretched, teams overwhelmed, and the people the business was created to serve can start to feel farther away. And so today we're exploring conscious growth, scaling without sacrificing culture. And Tulio, introduce our friend of the show, I guess now, as you are as a returning guest. But
my pleasure. Our guest today is Lisa Druxman. She is the founder of FIT4MOM. She's also a speaker, author, and entrepreneur. This is a special return conversation for us because Lisa joined the Bliss Business Podcast on August 29th, 2024. So almost 2 years on the dot, almost. For an episode on building community and connection in business, where we explored how our business grew into a powerful community supporting women through fitness, motherhood, connection, and belonging. FIT4MOM's mission is to help moms make strides in fitness, motherhood, and life. And today, the brand offers pre- and postnatal health, wellness, and fitness programs for every stage of motherhood. We loved hosting Lisa then, and we're excited to keep learning from her now. So especially about what it takes to scale consciously without sacrificing culture, trust, or well-being. Lisa, welcome back to the Bliss Business Podcast.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
By the way, I think we need to start Fit for Dads because I'm really jealous about what you've created for moms.
We got lots of dads coming to classes. We have a lot of Dadder Day classes on Saturdays.
Awesome. All right.
so Lisa, when we last spoke, as Tulio mentioned, we talked about community and connection, and now we really want to talk about that conscious growth aspect. What does conscious growth mean to you at this stage in your journey?
Well, it's funny. This month is actually our 25-year anniversary for FIT4MOM, and I'm feeling very reflective, and I feel like our definition of growth has evolved a lot. Earlier on, growth meant more, right? It's more locations, more franchises, more programs. And today I feel like it is more about getting stronger as it grows and healthier as it grows. And so really looking at, are we serving the moms better? Are our franchisees building healthier businesses? Is my team healthy? Are we really protecting the culture and the things that make FIT4MOM so special? I think sometimes conscious growth means accelerating. So I'm not saying that it's not ever about that, but I think that right now we're really focusing on strengthening the foundation before we're adding something new. And I don't think that growth is automatically a good thing. I think healthy growth is really what we're looking for now.
Now, FIT4MOM began really from your own desire to care for yourself while staying connected to your baby, and it grew into a national community for mothers. How has that origin story shaped the way you think about scale?
Yeah, I mean, I was not looking to start a business. I was looking to meet some new moms, and apparently I was not the only one looking for that. When I decided to turn it into a business and decided to franchise, I really wanted to be a present mom. But, I still needed to grow the business. And when I was looking at what to do, I didn't want to choose between taking care of myself and taking care of my baby. And that is literally still the heart of the company. We have a whole program called Mom Business Academy where we teach our franchisees how to win in life and how to win in the business. Like, I don't feel like it should be choosing one over another. So as far as Fit for Mom goes, we always believe that moms don't just need a workout, that they need connection and community, which we talked about on our last podcast together. They need other moms who understand what they're going through. As we scale the business, I keep coming back to, how do we make sure these moms feel seen and appreciated and valued? And for my franchisees, I'm always asking them, what is their why for the business? Because if their why is to be with their kids full time, then it doesn't necessarily make sense for them to go open a Fit for Mom studio. So I've got two things going on. One, I want to make sure that the business is the right fit for my franchisees. But two, I want to make sure that every mom feels more than just a number in the class. That's really important.
Yeah, I think that's, it's amazing if you probably think about it. You talked about this like being the 25th anniversary. Any idea how many moms you may have impacted over that time? I mean, there's so many different franchises and so many different moms. I don't even know that you keep track of all that, but I can see this massive ripple effect. And by you going, deep into that connection, just can have an even bigger impact as you continue.
Yeah, I wish that we had great databases from those early years, because we definitely didn't have the software that we do now. I can tell you that right now we have 400,000 moms in our Fit for Mom database who have taken classes. So I am guessing that in 25 years, we probably have reached 1 million moms, and we're really proud of that. But that's also barely scratched the surface of all the moms that are out there. So there's still a lot of work to do, because I want every mom to find the strength in motherhood.
Yeah. So I love that you're really spending time with that depth and that focus of your core mission, and trying to draw that out even more, going forward. So, I think, so you provide support for moms in a lot of different ways, through pregnancy, postpartum, every stage of motherhood. I think I mentioned, like, my wife, with her first child, she really made these important connections, at a time when she really needed them too. And now she's got like lifelong friends from them. So you mentioned, like, right now, 400,000 mothers you're impacting. You're helping them build connections that can be lifelong impacts. How does, thinking about how you define success, how does this sort of influence the way you do find success?
Yeah, I mean, we are a business, so revenue matters and membership matters, and we have to have a healthy business on our side and for our franchisees. But those numbers are not the only numbers on the KPI dashboard. I mean, success is also the mom who found her best friend at stroller strides, and the mom who is realizing that she needs to prioritize her health again. Success for us is when a client becomes an instructor and an instructor becomes a franchisee. Success for us is the franchise owner who has built a business that has allowed her to be at home with her kids and contribute to her family. So for us, there are lots of different ways that we check success, and it's not just the usual business KPIs. I mean, this might sound a little corny, but we just really believe that if you strengthen a mom, that there is a ripple effect that will impact her family and her friendships and her work and her community. And that impact is unfortunately a KPI that's hard to measure, but it is a huge part of why we exist.
Yeah, I don't think it sounds corny. We're always on this show talking with business leaders in different ways and talking about that ripple effect. So it's like, how can you build love into your business in some way or another? How can you build connection? Because we know it affects families, right? And it affects friendships. So it's really something we have to be thinking about, because we're building our own system, but we are within these other systems that we impact, through what we do. So no, I'm glad that you're kind of thinking that way. What do you think founders should protect most carefully as they scale? Because I know for us in our growth journey, it was like, that was the inflection point, I think, for us was, hey, we're feeling all these getting stretched in a whole bunch of different ways. We want to protect this, and this related to various connection and stuff with clients and with each other. What should founders protect most carefully kind of as they go through that process of scale?
I mean, for us, we're a really values-driven business. So I think it is truly knowing what your company values are, and they're not just, words on a screen. And if you haven't gone through that exercise, then at least just say, like, what is the thing that made people care in the first place? Like that, that is your culture, and that has to be the core. I think that every company has something at its core. For us at Fit4MOM, it is, like I said, the strength in motherhood and having women feel seen and supported as a mom. And the challenge is figuring out how to do that while also trying to grow your business, right? But I think that if you protect that, if you protect the culture, everything else can evolve with it. But like, we're always going back to that. So we always share our values with our franchisees and our employees, and we're always just asking people to check in with us if ever anything doesn't feel in alignment, to make sure we are directionally correct with that.
How do you balance that, the culture without getting lost in the metrics, where the goal becomes all about the metric? How do you balance that out? Because that can happen very easily, especially when growth organically happens naturally. It's very addictive, right? It's, we're growing, let's keep going, right? So how have you found, what's the secret sauce you found to balancing that so you maintain that culture?
I mean, metrics are important, so I don't want to say that they're not. Metrics is telling you what's happening. It's not necessarily telling you why. So like for us, we're in the fitness business. So like I can know that someone canceled, but I don't necessarily know why she canceled unless she tells us that she went back to work or she didn't feel connected or she didn't feel welcomed. I just think that throughout your business, throughout your checkpoints, like for us, we do weekly L10s and we do annual planning and quarterly. You need to balance the data and the human story. You need to balance the data and the culture. And I feel like so many companies just feel like that becomes a throwaway, like talking about your mission statement, talking about your vision. We go back to it at every quarterly strategy meeting. We go back to it at every annual planning. Just making sure that really still stays our North Star. So I don't think it has to be all encompassing. We're checking on our KPIs daily, weekly. But you want to make sure that you're looking at both, that you've got both that data and that human story.
Thinking about kind of our podcast here, we talk about Bliss and building love into, scalable systems is what that stands for. That certainly feels like more central to this conversation than anything, because conscious growth, it kind of can depend sometimes on the founder's personality. But then when you start to scale, that's where you start to lose all that. And I know that was for us, like I mentioned, kind of the big challenge was trying to systemize, those values and stuff like that. So thinking about kind of the systems you went through, to help with the values you were talking about and help scale, what kind of tips can you give someone as far as when they're starting to scale, to keep that culture human, to keep it alive, to keep the kind of the soul in the business going?
We did a kind of a cool activity. I don't know if this is exactly what you're getting at, that helped us figure out so first we came up with Fit4MOM values that felt important to us. But then we did another activity where we looked at all of our best franchisees and like the franchisees who you love to work with and you wish there were more of them and they're successful in the business and they're amazing people to work with. And so we took a handful of them and we went through an exercise where we really looked at what do these people have in common? And those became the core values that we looked at. So I feel like that's a system that anybody can do, where it's looking at your best clients and or your best customers, or however that works. But I think that was one thing we did. I mean, one of the things, again, that's kind of been an aha for me, again, at this 25-year mark, and I wish I learned it a lot sooner, is that culture can't live just with the founder. All right. So it's like, I feel like, in a small business, the founders, everything revolves around them. That is no longer the case at Fit4Mom. Like, the culture does not just depend on me being in the room anymore. And that's why I think the business can grow, is because I have a variety of team members who care about what we do and why we do it. And I think that makes a big difference. So I don't know if these are systems, but like, we're just asking questions a lot. Like, what do we want every mom to experience every time she encounters Fit4Mom? What are the same things? So we're a franchise. So it's like, we're not just one location, it's 1,000 locations. So we really have to create systems of like, what are the things that we want to happen every time a mom comes to class, regardless of location? And then you create systems that support those behaviors. So call them SOPs if you want, or trainings. But I think those are some of the things that we do to make sure that there's a pull through of that love and that culture through the actual work that happens. So
yeah, I think like you mentioned, you kind of audited your business according to like those values of those kind of that best group. And you're like, okay, how can we now systemize this? How can we make it part of our operating procedures and things like that to get those values through, right? Is that what I'm
I think so.
So we've got an audience question. Let's pull that up. So from a LinkedIn user, so what internal metric matters more to you today than traditional location count or top line revenue?
One of the most internal metrics that we care the most about, because my business is, we make our money from the franchise, right? So it's the health of our franchises. Their business is the clients, is a net promoter score from our franchisees. And so we ask them about every 6 months, on a scale from 0 to 10, how likely are they to recommend this business? I care that they feel successful in it and that it's matching what they wanted it to be. So that is a metric that is not one we check daily by any means. But that one really matters to me. Most franchises are all about just the revenue. And honestly, a lot of franchises will drop you if you don't have a minimum threshold. I spoke to a franchisee yesterday who she teaches 3 classes a week. She doesn't want to hire instructors. She's doing it because of impact and community. And she would say she's successful. And so I say she's successful. That's the business that matters to her, and it fits in her life.
Yeah, that makes sense. Tulia, we got another question.
We got another one, yes.
Excuse me.
Bless you. Let's see. How do you maintain an intimate village feel across nearly 2,000 class locations?
Yeah, it's what we teach. So I've been in the fitness industry for far longer than our 25 years. And, I taught all the different kinds of group exercise classes and personal training. And every other brand I ever worked for was just about sets and reps and the fitness aspect of the business. What we teach in our classes is everything. Like, we have something called the ripple effect, which, it's our secret sauce. I can't tell you all about it, but basically we think about the phases of the business. And this part's the same for all fitness businesses. First, you need someone to become aware of you. Then you need to get them to say yes, they want to come and become a member. Then you need to make sure they have a great class experience. And then you need to retain them. You want to keep them as part of your community. So our ripple effect teaches the instructors how to make mom-to-mom connections, how to make mom-to-instructor connections, how to connect her with her kids if she's doing a class with her kids, and how to connect to each other. It's literally part of how we teach our classes. So that community, it's like a recipe, is done at all of our classes. We have 8 different classes, fitness for every stage of motherhood, but that part is the same for every single class, is how to build community. And we were talking a little bit before the show about how hard motherhood is and how many women lose their sense of self and identity and maybe lost the friends that they had. Everything at Fit4Mom is to have her be seen, felt, valued, and connected. So that's how we do it across the country. It's what we teach.
I know so from the marketer in me too, like if I'm putting that hat on, I'm seeing like the ability of creating emotional connection like you have in all these different stages. It's so critical to having that that consumption experience of your service. You want it to have that emotional connection, and it's got to be a positive one because there are negative ones in there. So so many businesses just forget this part of building all that connection when they can. So I think there's a lot for our audience to learn from there, is like really look at these different ways that you can authentically, connect with people and build those opportunities for the human to human connection to happen versus,
almost every instructor and franchisee we have was a client first, like almost always. Wow. And they do it because they'll say Fit4Mom saved their life. They do it because it had such a big impact on them, and they want to pay it forward, and they want to make sure that continues in their community. So when someone experiences something that powerful, it makes it really easy for us to be able to keep continuing it.
Now, I know that your franchise model, it really empowers women to become leaders. As you said, a lot of them were clients who then became owners and leaders in their communities as a result, and start businesses while also raising children, which has got its own challenges as well. What systems are needed, you think, to support franchise owners, not only as operators, but as a whole people? And where can other franchise learn from this?
Yeah, I mean, our franchise is pretty unique because literally, I shouldn't be embarrassed, but I'm almost embarrassed to tell you, our average franchise owner tells us they work 10 to 15 hours a week. There's not very many businesses like that. Don't get me wrong, we have lots of franchisees who work full-time, but most of them bought this business because they wanted to be a mom first and foremost. So your question's a really important one to me. I can't say we support moms and then create a business that asks her to sacrifice herself in order to succeed. So from the very start, we find out her why for the business. Is her why because she wants to have impact or community, or does she need to make 6 figures because it's a different path? And so we feel like the systems are that they need good tools, they need good training, they need good coaching. We talk a lot about time blocking, and really, like, if you only have 15 hours a week to work, we really need to make sure that you are a master of your time and focusing on the things with the highest return on investment and the highest return on energy. You cannot just be working on the urgent stuff that fills the day. But I also think, just like my clients need community, I think my franchisees need community. So I don't know if you would call that a system, but I will in this answer. They need other franchise owners who understand what they're experiencing, and they need support through different seasons of life and different seasons of their business. I truly do want moms and our franchisees to be ambitious, but I don't want them to believe that ambition means that they are burned out. So I don't believe that there is any perfect balance, but I believe that there is a way she can have business and life working together.
Nice.
I mean, and I love that you're putting out there like a franchise with 10, 15 hours max might be the perfect thing for someone, because I don't know, we define, like, we're all stuffed in these boxes of 9 to 5, 40 hours a week, and this is what you should be doing. But who's to say no? Maybe you need to be spending that time with your family, and if you can do this 10 to 15 hours a week to help build community, help build connection, and help support the family financially, that sounds like an ideal model for a lot of people. We just are so stuck with our definition of what ideal scenario should be.
Old paradigms. It took me a while to realize it could be different. And what we've seen after doing this for 25 years is that, yeah, a lot of franchisees start with 10 to 15 hours a week. But as their own kids get older, they have more bandwidth, they have more capacity, they have more time to put into the business, and their business does usually continue to grow exponentially. You know, you get what you put into it. So like, yeah, you might start really part-time because that's what fits your family now, but that can also change as your lifestyle, your life stage changes.
And thinking, okay, so we talked about like the 10 to 15 hours, but also for you, so you've got, 400,000 people out there and all that, and you're taking this moment now after 25 years to just pause everything. What does it take, do you think, for a leader to kind of slow down expansion and then make decisions like that in service of a longer term health for the whole?
Well, are you referring to that we've decided to pause franchise sales? Because I don't know if we've told your audience that yet.
Wow.
Yeah, let's go into that.
Yeah. So,
and just right, I think what Steven's asked is a really important question. Because the assumption is always growth, 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 and sometimes you just get to that place where you're like, I want to actually slow down a little bit. And I think it's a very important question. Like, how does someone make that decision?
Yeah.
You support them through that decision.
Yeah, we had mentioned prior to the show, I think, that you're pausing, like right now, intentionally, from that growth, like we were talking about. So, yeah, getting back to that, what does it take for a leader to kind of be able to get to that point?
Yeah. So for the first time since we started franchising over 20 years ago, we made a conscious decision to pause new franchise sales for the remainder of the year so that we could focus on our current franchisees, to really focus on strengthening our programs and just building a stronger foundation for the future. That was a really scary decision. I can tell you that I feel now, hindsight, it was the right decision. And it's hard because we always feel like in business that you're focusing on, well, it's got to be more sales and more customers, those metrics that we were talking about, more locations. But our existing franchisees were not feeling as successful as we would like them to be. And so you can't just keep adding more franchises. That's not healthy growth. So we made the decision to put energy into the women who have already invested with us. And we look every day now of like, how can we strengthen their business? How can we improve our own training, our own programs, our own systems, so that the model itself is stronger? And again, it was a hard decision to make. I think that sometimes in leadership, you have to have the courage to say, like, we're not going to keep adding, we're going to strengthen. Sorry, I'm fitness, so I got to tie it to that. And I feel like this was one of the best decisions that we've made. And I felt like our franchisees really, it's the same thing as what we want as our clients. Our franchisees felt seen and heard and valued by us making that decision.
Nice.
Yeah, I think, like, if we're questioning the common assumptions of making a business, like you mentioned, it's like grow, grow, grow. You're always thinking of just numbers. And sometimes it's like, why do you have to do it that way? And you're, instead of going, broad, you're going deep. Let's go deep instead of going broad, because our numbers, we're so focused on that breadth versus that depth of, like you mentioned, like connection, like supporting the teams. And that's another way to move. And so pausing that other to focus on that, I think it's really something a lot more businesses ought to think about doing, which they don't. They're really focused on, just those other kinds of numbers and metrics.
And, you assume that just, we're going to pause franchise sales. So how can you afford to do that? Honestly, we've had some of our most profitable months since we've done it, because we were spending so much money to get new franchise sales. We were spending so much on salaries for our franchise sales reps, on advertising. Franchising is very expensive. So the cost of an audit and FDD and all of that. So those savings actually made us more profitable and gave us a lot more space so we can focus on the business we already have.
So your work, it's centered on women. motherhood, wellness, connection. How does a strong purpose help leaders make better decisions during growth? Or in the case of this case, nothing wrong with having a lifestyle business too, maintaining a certain level of already growth that has happened.
I think that any business owner that's listening would agree, like, being a business owner is hard. It's really hard. And there are so many days that you want to throw in the towel. And I don't care if you're running $100,000 business, $1 million business, like, there are those days. And I have never really considered throwing in the towel because of my purpose, because I believe so much in what we do and why we do it. That has kept me always moving forward. And it's so that when those hard things come up, you're like, there's got to be a way around, over, under it. You definitely learn to have more capacity and more confidence the more you go through a business. But that purpose is like, our purpose is so meaningful to me that I'm willing, the only reason I'll throw in the towel is because if another company can take care of this company better than I can and give it better resources than I can, I care about the legacy of what we do. And I get, like, we have a very meaningful company. Somebody else might be selling widgets. That might be harder. You still got to find your purpose, even if you're selling the widget. But mine is an easy one that I really believe in what we do and how we do it.
It's so true though. You got to find your purpose, I think, a lot of times, because like you mentioned, there's so many ups and downs, and there's so many, especially starting a business, there's so much that's going to be thrown at you all the time, where that kind of thing can just wear you down, get you burnout. But if you've got that higher purpose in mind, you're able to take it on and take on even more. And I love that you mentioned earlier in the show, like, each of your franchise owners, you want to know about their purpose,
Mm-hmm.
their personal why, right? And so,
absolutely,
yeah, integrating that is key to your success as well, right?
I think that the purpose can become a great filter. So I'm a small business owner, really, at the end of the day. Like, this is not a mega corporation. So there are more opportunities and things that come our way than we could ever do. Or there's new products that you might want to start, or new partnerships, or new revenue streams. There's always new things. And when you use your purpose as a filter to say, like, it's not a matter of could we do this, but should we do this, right? Does this opportunity tie into our purpose of helping moms live healthier, happier lives, of having an impact, of strengthening our franchisees? So it ends up being kind of a roadmap to just making better decisions, because again, you can't say yes to everything.
I know two of the moments I remember on the show specifically about purpose was one of our guests said, "Know your hell yes and your hell no."
Yes.
Right. So that
if it's not a hell yeah, it's a no.
Yeah. And so it's like, know that really well. And the other was from Doug Kirkpatrick of Morningstar was purpose is the boss, right? At some point.
I like that.
And yeah. And where if you've got, 1,000 people out there working for you, if everyone's all aligned on that purpose, then that really does become the way you can kind of lead without having to be there all the time. So yeah, I think you're kind of hitting on both of those with your answer.
Awesome.
So, you've got 2,000 class locations, right? Is that where you're at now?
Somewhere around there. Hard to keep track.
Somewhere around there. How do you keep a sense of like the village and belonging at that kind of scale?
I think it ties to what we were talking about before of creating the community that your listener had asked. The magic of Fit4MOM happens locally. It's we give them the tools to create the magic, but they do it. So like headquarters creates programs, and we create training and brand and systems. But the real magic, the experience happens mom to mom in class when an instructor says, I've been there, and she connects a mom to another mom. That is the village. Our job, my job, is to make sure that those local leaders understand that they're not just simply teaching a fitness class. They're literally creating belonging. And I think that belonging is built through very small moments that seem inconsequential at the time, but are really important to that mom. You literally might be giving her her best hour of the day. So, for us, we teach our franchisees and our instructors to know the mom's names, but also to introduce her to other moms, checking in on the client who didn't show up to class, celebrating milestones, birthdays, just really building deep relationships with these moms. And I don't think that's something we can manufacture at headquarters. I think that we can create conditions for it and give them some tools for it, but it is definitely our instructors who create it.
Nice.
So I think when you're on the show previously, we've asked every guest a form of this question, so I'm going to change it a little. Usually ask what roles should love play in business, but for you, I'm thinking like, how does love influence the way leaders should think about growth?
I always love that you ask this question. It's hard to put into words. This is what I'm just feeling right now. It's just like sometimes the most loving thing you can do as a leader is to tell the truth. Sometimes it is creating clarity or holding people accountable. Right now, for me, love is making decisions that are protecting the health of the organization, even if that decision's not easy. Love is caring so much about your people and your mission that you're not going to pursue growth at their expense. That's what's bubbling up for me. I don't even know if I answered your question.
No, you did. And I think your comments kind of coming into that question too. I was like, oh man, this is just a transition into, you can really see kind of the love at that, especially with you're trying to bring out and to prompt within each of your local leaders, right? I think you take so much time and effort to try and prompt that from people so that it's, they're connecting with other moms and they're very purposeful about all that. And I think that's really, there's these different ways that love can show up in leadership. And so it starts from you, but then now you've also got, all these different local leaders as well that you really trying to get that from, so that the moms feel that too. And so that their families feel that. So you can definitely see how that path works within your business model. And you've done a really good job, I think, of kind of auditing the business over the years to try and make sure you're very thoughtful about all those touch points and things.
And I really appreciate the consciousness behind growth, because from your perspective, it's multidimensional. Sometimes growth is, you might choose to have growth in another area of your life. Maybe you want to expand your family. You want to spend more time with you. That's part of your growth too. It doesn't always add into just growing more business, adding more revenue. That's very singular dimensional. There's people who are just so successful in business, but in every other area of their life, it's an imbalance. That's not a successful person. That's a single dimensional person who's suffering in every other area, right? We've got plenty of stories of people like that who some of them ended up dying young and realizing, I did all this and I still didn't create connection.
Yeah.
It's like, no one's going to remember that you made billions of dollars. But I love this idea of conscious growth, because that sometimes means slowing down your business so you can grow in other areas of your life. And that's equally important. I think more business people need to think that way, because otherwise it becomes a trap. And so for founders or leaders who are entering maybe a new season of growth, and I speak of growth in this context, right? Mm-hmm. That means different things to different people. What practical first step can help them scale more consciously, whatever that growth is for them? First, define it for yourself, but how can they do it more consciously? What's a good step that they should take from your point?
I feel like everything always starts with asking powerful questions. So maybe instead of asking, how do we grow, ask, what must we never lose? And write that down. Like, what is it that your customers would genuinely miss if it disappeared? Or what makes your experience or your product or your service different? Or why do people believe in you, in your business? And then growth can be about protecting that instead of letting it get diluted. Look, how many times I feel like this is like, do you have a favorite restaurant that gets purchased or acquired and it quickly becomes not your favorite restaurant because they cheapen the ingredients, they change the recipes, they did these things. Like, they didn't protect what was special in order for them to grow it. So I just think, what does healthy growth look for us mean right now? And it's not always more customers or more money. Maybe it is for, again, in the fitness, it's better retention in the fitness industry, but maybe it's better margins. Maybe it's stronger employees or healthier customers. So I think just before you start chasing growth, define what the right growth is for you.
Literally yesterday before dinner, we were looking at restaurants. We wanted to try something new, and I'm going through reviews, and I see two of them. The one we were going to go through talked about how management kind of changed, and suddenly you saw all these things going. And the other one talked about how management changed, but it got for the better. So it's literally these two different things. Like you said, one really cared about it. One was going for the profit. And for me, it was like, well, which one am I going to eat at? So I'm going to the one that where they said, yeah, customer service improved so much here, and all that, and along with the meal and stuff. But it was literally making that same decision, kind of to your point, with restaurants last night, just as, an example of protecting what's important. One didn't protect what was important.
We live in a day and age where everything is so commoditized and Amazon fast and that kind of thing. It's like, I think what most of us can do as a small business owner is create something that's really unique and special and that people care about.
True.
Yeah.
Okay. So Lisa, where can listeners learn more about you, Fit4Mom, your writing, your speaking, and your work?
Yeah, well, the best place to learn about Fit4Mom is to go to fit4mom.com, and it's fit with the number 4 mom.com. You can find a local community there. Just put in your zip code or city. And even if you're not a mom, you probably know a mom. You can find me through my website, which is lisadruxman.com. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook as at Lisa Druxman. And I talk about motherhood and health and entrepreneurship. After 25 years, I am still a mom on a mission, and I really want to help people take the best care of themselves and use their time intentionally and build lives that we actually want to live.
Lisa, thanks for joining us again. I know last time we talked about was building community and connection, and to now we're talking about learning how to protect the culture as you go through those moments of growth. And it's interesting because growth kind of does reveal what a business is built on at that moment, right? So this is why we're always talking about, hey, you got to protect what's important to you. You got to protect that culture. You got to build that love into it, because otherwise, as you get stretched, if you're not thinking about those things, that's what you're building. And I think people can feel that. Your customers will feel that. Your employees especially will feel that. And so, we have so many employees now that are disengaged with work because I think they're definitely, we're thinking about growth, but we aren't pausing to think about all the people involved in all that. So thanks for helping kind of tell that story, I think, today.
My pleasure. And for those who, kind of are interested in the values thing, if you go to fit4mom.com/our mission, and I can put a link in the show notes for you. We list our values that we kind of build everything around. And I talked about love at that moment where I was feeling, but we actually have love as one of our values. And we say it's the linchpin of motherhood in all life. We choose love over fear, and we bring love to every class, interaction, and decision.
I love it.
Yeah, let's end on that now. Thank you for joining us today, everyone, on the Bliss Business Podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.